Okay, class, today we're going to be discussing your social studies project for the month. So think back. We've been discussing the Revolutionary War. At this point in the presentation, I would ask my students to recollect on their knowledge of the Revolutionary War, its significance. We would go on to discuss these four main events that I have right here on the PowerPoint: the Boston Massacre, the Tea Party, and the battles of Concord and Lexington, respectively. I also have a YouTube video which is pretty much the span of this time. It's pictures and drawings from that time period set to music. I think it's really compelling and it really explains what led up to the war. And then I would go into my spiel about putting ourselves in the shoes of another individual. For instance, here I have President John Adams, the kids taking the role of President John Adams while he was working up to becoming the president, and what he did to make the war more successful for the U.S. Here I have a word map. So I would ask the students to please pick out last names that they found familiar or even not familiar, and we would go on to discuss those names. For instance, Paul Revere, George Washington, James Wilson, and then somewhere in here is Abigail, or not Abigail, but the Adams' last name, which can go for John Adams, John Quincy Adams, Abigail Adams, and Abigail Adams Smith. That family was very successful. We go on to talk about them a lot. Expectations. At this point in the presentation, I would go over the project expectations, having the students get really excited about discovering different people, not just the main people from the previous word map, the Washington, the Revere, but also the Drapers and the Rosses and things like that. I would ask them to tell me who their famous revolutionary icon was, when was that person born, and when did they die, what made this person important, where was this person most influential, geography-wise, and please describe 3 significant facts about your revolutionary icon. I choose birth and death dates and geography because if the students choose a a pairing task, they will have to make connections between the individuals that they choose. So single task option. On your own, write a letter in the time period you believe your chosen famous individual would write and to who he or she would write to. Some famous individuals who often wrote letters back and forth were John and Abigail Adams. They were apart for several years during the Revolutionary War due to John's political stance, and because of that, they have years and years of collective letters written between them that are actually great historical documents. On presentation day, you must present the letter to the class with props from that time period that are relevant to your letter and the individual in which you wrote to. So, task 2 is a pair option. You and another person are in charge of making a PowerPoint that shows all information found on your chosen individuals. If the two never met, how could their meeting be beneficial to the war? What would they have talked about? You are both in charge of presenting the PowerPoint to the class with props that would help the class better understand the individuals you have chosen. Again, props are really important because it helps you get into the mindset of the characters in which you are playing. These are very famous historical individuals and their names are written in history for a reason. And group 3's task option, In a group of 3, you must create a skit lasting 3 to 5 minutes where information about each individual will be given. Along with the background, your group will be required to connect the 3 individuals chosen in history and explain why these 3 would be. If there's no record of them meeting, find evidence, true evidence, that would put these 3 individuals together and make a valid connection between the 3. And for instance, I encourage the students to look at the geography and then, of course, the Declaration of Independence signing. And last but not least, we would go over the rubric so they would know every expectation I had. Thank you.